Batman, Cataclysm, and No Man's Land is probably my favorite Batman event. You got great changes, meaningful changes for characters, new characters introduced, Batgirl's introduced in here, Huntress has a huge arc in here, Bruce has a huge arc, you got Lex Luthor and Bane and Joker, Harley Quinn makes her first appearance in the regular DC universe in this saga. Fantastic, fantastic stuff. So with that, here are my complete thoughts, my complete review of the entire Batman No Man's Land saga, starting from Cataclysm through Road to No Man's Land and through No Man's Land itself. These are all my old reviews of the trade paperback, so sit back, let them play, and enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I'm your host, Brent Cosina, and today we're going to be talking about Batman Cataclysm. Now, before we get into the review, I'd like to do one thing. Please subscribe and like this video. Helps me out with the algorithm, lets you know when I drop new videos. If you want an instant notification, ring that bell. Thank you very much. Now, Batman Cataclysm. This particular trade, I just read it for the first time. Not the story, but the trade. I have the old trade, which I've had since it came out, I think, like 2000s or something like that. Maybe it was 1999. I remember buying this trade in Barnes & Noble a long, long time ago. I would bike over to Barnes & Noble on the weekend or something, and I bought these Cataclysm and No Man's Land trades. So this one was released in 2009, or not 2009, sorry, 1999, and it holds most of what is in this newer version of Cataclysm. Now, you can't find this trade anymore. I had been searching for a long, long time, and while there are copies out there, a lot of them are overpriced. This thing originally went for $30, $29.99, and you can find some out there for over $100. Sometimes even close to $2, which is an astronomical price for an out-of-print trade paperback of a story that is now 20 years old. So, how did I find it? Well, I did pay over cover price for this. I think I paid $60 for it on eBay, or yeah, it must have been eBay. I don't think it was Amazon. Amazon has a couple things like that, a couple listings. I paid $60 for it. I was like, well, I really want to read it. There's more stuff in here, and the spines match nicely to the new versions of Road to No Man's Land, which I have, and the No Man's Land collections that I, upgraded to the new versions of. So I wanted this trade. Then I went to my local comic shop, well, not the one closest to me, but one of the ones here where I live, and sure enough, they had it on the shelf for cover price. So if I had only checked all the shops in my area, I could have gotten it $20 cheaper, but oh well. Maybe one of you lucky people will go and find that as well. So, I've talked about the differences between this book and the old version on a separate overview video from right when I purchased it, months and months back. But I finally got around to reading it because I've been reading through my Batman Nightfall trades and read Night Out. I read Contagion, I read Legacy on my iPad, and now I'm finally making my way through what I consider to be like a quintessential Batman story or saga, is the No Man's Land Cataclysm saga. Like, this is where, for me, Batman comics got really, really good. Now, I haven't read a whole bunch of 80s comics. The most 90s comics I've read is all the Nightfall stuff, all those 9 volumes of the new trade paperback set, or if you want to go by the hardcover omnibuses, from Prelude to Nightfall all the way through Troika. I've read Batman Night Out. I've got a video of that up here on the channel, and that takes place in between, I think it's Legacy, right after Contagion, basically, where there's a virus that's released, and then after Contagion you have Batman Legacy. There's 2 volumes of those out, and then you have Batman Night Out. So this deals with an earthquake hitting Gotham City, a big one, a 7.5 on the Richter scale, lasts for 15 seconds. And throughout this volume, you get different moments in that earthquake. You get the beginning, the middle, the end, and about a week after that earthquake. And it takes place across all the Bat books at the time, and this version of the trade collects every single book that had the Cataclysm banner on it and all of its contents, except for Robin issue 52. Now, I talked about it in the overview. Apparently that issue, there was only 3 pages. Robin's coming back from a trip from Europe, and I guess most of the issue prior to that, those 3 pages, dealt with them closing out the storyline they were in. Then he's over Gotham in his plane and sees it like crumbling and on fire and realizes something bad has happened. So those are the only 3 pages of that issue that are included in here, and really that's all you wanted to need. You didn't really want to read the rest of a storyline. Although there is, what is in here? Azrael issue 40 has a Cataclysm banner on its side. That's included in here, and that is dealing with the fallout of him going up against Bane, I think in issues 35 through 39, even though like they're arriving in Gotham to hand Bane over as the earthquake happens, and then it's Azrael chasing Bane through the streets of Gotham post-earthquake. It's pretty interesting. But you still have Bane talking about things that happened in past issues that don't really have anything to do with the overall crossover here. Besides all that, it's still a fun issue. And I gotta say, reading this trade, I had a really good time, and I remember why I love the Bat books from this era. They are mature. They are not mature as in like unsuitable for kids, but just the themes here are real. Nobody's pretending here that people didn't die in this earthquake. You see Batman save people, and you see him almost fail to save people. You see the heroes come into grips with they're not going to be able to save everybody. There are some great moments in here across all of the Bat books and all of the writers, and it's just so much fun to read this really, really compelling tale of the earthquake hitting Gotham. If you told me one of the best Bat books you'll read all year this year, Brent, is Batman Cataclysm, when you reread it for like a second or third time, I'd have told you, no way, come on, it's just about an earthquake. Well, really, this is a really good book and a really good story. Because it deals with real things. You kind of remove the costumed element out of the characters, and because all the Bat heroes don't have superpowers, they're just men in tights or women in tights. If you're talking about Huntress, Catwoman, and Spoiler, who are all in this book, they're just people in tights doing their best with what they can. And when they're outmatched, when the city is crumbling around them, you can't really use your grappling hook to fly away or anything. When the streets are covered in rubble, you cannot use the Batmobile to get around. So it's our heroes encountering new challenges that they never thought they would face because of this earthquake, and then realizing like the scope and depth of their humanity because of the events of the earthquake. You have heroes like Huntress, who is really realizing that she doesn't want to abide by Batman's code, and at this point in time, like, Huntress has been introduced as Helena Bartonelli. In this version, this is the post-crisis DC universe, pre-New 52. She's the daughter of a mafia family that got gunned down. So she's out to get revenge for her family, but at the same time realizing that her parents were bad people. But she doesn't want to live by Batman's code, and they've had some run-ins prior to this story. And because she sees people still looting in this time of need, she comes to the realization that people are terrible, and maybe some people don't deserve to be saved, that kind of thing. At the same time, on the opposite side of the spectrum, you have Catwoman, who's a thief, realizing that she needs to stop being a thief during this time and needs to step up as a human being who has compassion for people and pitch in. She's trapped in a mall, or not a mall, she's in like a jewelry department store and is trying to steal some binoculars when the earthquake happens and gets stuck with people. And at first she's trying to be like, oh, well, you don't really need my help or anything like that. And then slowly comes around as this little girl, she's is really, really hurt, and she dies in the issue as Catwoman desperately tries to save her and keep her talking and give her chest compressions and CPR, and it's just not enough. And that turns Catwoman into somebody who realizes that she needs to pitch in and help out. Otherwise, everybody around her, including her, is going to die if they don't get out of this building in a safe way. Really, really compelling story. Most of this trade paperback has Batman doing things un-Batman-like. He's not punching villains in the face. There's a meetup with the Penguin in which you will never believe what happens. He doesn't punch him in the face at all. Most of the time, Batman's just trying to get out of his own cave because he's in the Batcave ready to go on a mission or something when the earthquake hits at like 7 o'clock in the evening. And for a couple of issues, and they drag the story through different issues of the Batman titles, is Bruce Wayne realizing that Alfred's up above him and he's got to save Alfred and get him to a safe place. Harold is still around from the Nightfall story, and they realize that he's still there. And then Bruce has to put on a scuba gear and try to go through the subterranean, like below cave levels that are filling up with water to try and find a way out so that he can go back up to the top and then get Alfred and Harold out a different way. Does he ever do it? You have to read the book to find out. But it's a really compelling story, and it's so much fun to see this natural disaster put all these familiar characters who usually do the same familiar things over and over again in a new situation that they have to adapt when they realize that that they're only human. And that is the power of superhero storytelling, is when you can take somebody with powers or abilities or special skills and make them realize their own humanity. That's the stories that are chef's kiss, just the best. And Batman Cataclysm is the beginning of a fantastic story that is going to run through, all the way through No Man's Land. So I highly recommend Batman Cataclysm. This is the way to read it. This book is a little thick. There are some stories in here I could have done without, specifically the the Arkham storyline. It's like the second to last issue in here. It's called Tales of Madness, and I think it was a one-shot. It's got this cover on it, and it's just, it deals with the villains in Arkham. They're not really affected by the earthquake. Like, there's nothing crumbling down around them. They somehow managed to get out, and they're torturing a guard, and they're telling scarier stories to figure out which one of them is going to be able to kill him. And it just kind of loses me. It's like, it's very towards the very end of the book, and the next issue after that is the conclusion, where you pick up with the Quake Master and find out who he is, and there you rescue this police detective in this issue of Robin here, and stuff like that. So you're like, just get to the story already, like, because the main story is there's this central mystery of there's a person claiming that they caused the earthquake. That's really like the central mystery of the book, other than the fallout and the aftermath of the quake, is this Quake Master who's saying, I can do it again if I want to, if you don't pay me a bunch of money. So our heroes are simultaneously saving people as well as trying to figure out who the Quake Master is and how to stop him from doing it again. So by the time this Tales of Arkham story rolls around, you're like, skip. Like, can I skip this? Is this anything important? And ultimately, it's not important at all. And I know it had the Cataclysm banner, and that's what the purpose of this trade was, is to include everything that had that Cataclysm banner on it as part of the event. But just where they put that story in this book, I think maybe was the wrong spot. Maybe that's when it was released or something like that in the schedule, but I feel like it would have been served better if it was served, 2 or 3 issues prior, instead of right at the end of this, moment where you're looking to find this resolution with the Quake Master. But other than that, this is a fantastic trade, fantastic story. Go and seek it out if you can. If you can find it, don't overpay for it. Certainly can find it on Comixology for a regular price as well, this version of the trade, if you want to read it digitally. But I also recommend that you, if you're an omnibus person, this Cataclysm book is collected inside the Road to No Man's Land omnibus, as well as those other 2 volumes of trade paperbacks as well. So that is in that omnibus, the Road to No Man's Land omnibus. It just came out a couple months ago. So if you're an omnibus person, you can check it out that way as well. So let me know down below what you guys thought of Batman Cataclysm. I think it's a fantastic Batman story, and I'm so excited to read the Road to No Man's Land trades. I've never read those before, and then I'm going to reread No Man's Land volumes 1 through 4 in this new printing, and see what was left out, because I've read the older trades numerous times, but I haven't read these newer ones that I have yet. So we're going to do that here on the channel together. So let me know down below what you thought of Batman Cataclysm. What are your favorite memories from this era of the Bat books? Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I am your host, Brent Casina. And before we get into talking about Road to No Man's Land Volume 1, let me ask you to please do one thing. Please subscribe. Helps me out, helps the channel grow, lets you know when I drop new videos, all that great stuff. Hit that bell if you're really crazy. Now, Batman Road to No Man's Land. So previously on the channel, we've talked about Batman Cataclysm. I got a review of it up on the channel. You can go check that out. And this is the earthquake that destroys Gotham City. There's like an aftershock in here, but really most of this book takes place all around like the first night, first 48 hours or something like that. Road to No Man's Land Volume 1 isn't really the Road to No Man's Land per se, as much as it is the Aftershock brand of title, right? So you had a whole bunch of books come out with this Aftershock branding on the top above the logos. All of that Aftershock stuff is in here. It's actually in Volume 2 of Road to No Man's Land, which I'm going to read and review next, that we actually have the Road to No Man's Land branding on the side banner and stuff like that, which then leads into No Man's Land. Right? So, Brent, what are you talking about? What is No Man's Land? Well, No Man's Land is this 4-volume Batman epic, and it happened, I want to say it was like 99, 2000, 2001, early 2000s of Batman books, and it is one of the best Batman stories ever written, and it is astonishing because it's not really one story as much as it is a bunch of smaller little stories that tie in together and happen one after another. The same thing can be said about Road to No Man's Land. This has never been collected before until this collection came out a few years ago. But man, oh man, was this stuff good. This was collected in 2015, actually. All right, so 6 years old. I'm not sure if there's ever been reprinted these individual trades, but there is a new Road to No Man's Land omnibus that is, I think it came out this year, or maybe a month or two back. So if you can't find the trades and you want that bigger size or whatever, you can go check that out. So you can count this as part 2 of the Road to No Man's Land omnibus review, I guess, if you want to call it that, because that omnibus collects Cataclysm, which I showed you, and Road to No Man's Land Volume 1 and 2. I think most of the same issues. Again, I have the trades, not 100% sure on the Omni, but I'm assuming it's all the same digital files or whatever. Like all the covers are collected in here. They have, all the indicia, the Comics Code Authority appears on every cover and stuff like that. Like I'll show you, go back to this Detective Comics cover. It's got all the logos and stuff and who, the artists, all that stuff. So I'm guessing DC doesn't exactly have the Virgin cover art, they just have everything as one. So maybe that's how it's appearing in the omnibus, I'm not sure. You could probably check out another channel for that overview. But Road to No Man's Land contains all of the Aftershock branded issues, at least as far as I can tell. I think I opened up Volume 2 to make sure, and I think Volume 2 starts out with the actually, I think it starts with the issue of Azrael with the Road to No Man's Land branding. So, Volume 1, basically, they should have called this Aftershock, although I do think it makes a better title in terms of the set. You have Cataclysm, Road to No Man's Land Volume 1 and 2, and then we have 4 volumes of the new No Man's Land trades, which all have this kind of spine on it. Same spine design on this as there is Cataclysm and these new No Man's Land trades. So I've read No Man's Land many, many times. I had the old trade paperbacks when they were originally collected in like 2000, 2001. There were 5 of those, and I upgraded to these a little bit ago, and so I'm excited to read Road to No Man's Land, which I've never read any of this stuff before, but I'm excited to read the new No Man's Land set because there's issues that are in there that I've never read before that weren't originally collected. So what is in No Man's Land Volume 1? Like I said, it's all the Aftershock branded issues, I think, but specifically it's Detective Comics 722, 724 through 26, Batman 555 through 559, I don't know why I said it that way, Batman Shadow of the Bat 75 through 79, Robin number 54, and the Batman Chronicles number 14. So, whole lot of Batman in here. But it's got great art by Jim Aparo in here. You got Graham Nolan. You got writers such as Alan Grant, Doug Munch, Norm Brayfogel's doing art in here. Mark Buckingham. Oh my gosh, I didn't know Mark Buckingham. I mean, I knew he was a good artist because I've read half of Fables, but seeing him on Batman here, I don't know if he's on Batman or Detective Comics specifically. I just know every time his art showed up, it was wonderful. He's on Shadow of the Bat on one of these, Mark Buckingham. I think he was doing Shadow of the Bat. So it's very interesting because this comes after, I think, the Kelly Jones run, either on Batman or Detective in the 90s. I think it was Batman, because Detective Comics is the Night Out stuff that I reviewed from, what's his name, Chuck Dixon. Chuck Dixon's writing stuff in here. So, but anyway, Mark Buckingham looks like he's kind of aping Kelly Jones a little bit, or maybe vice versa, but it's the same stylistically, and then I guess it kind of evolves into his Fable style. But man, oh man, like this here's Mark Buckingham right here. Very tall-eared kind of Batman, very Kelly Jones, big capes going everywhere, lots of shadows, lots of darkness, and you're not really seeing Batman's face. Like, look at this Batman panel up here. That really is reminiscent to me of, I think, Kelly Jones, but a little bit less exaggerated, I guess you would say. But very, very beautiful, very well done. So yeah, lots of great stories in here, lots of great art, and for the most part, all of these kind of function as done in ones. Each issue has an event that goes on, and Batman encounters it and solves it, that kind of thing. Or Robin does, for the couple issues that have Robin in it. Nightwing makes a couple of appearances. He's on the way over from Bloodhaven, from time to time. And it's kind of interesting because you have Batman telling him, like, no, go back to Bloodhaven. And even the setup of Dick Grayson becoming a cop over in the Nightwing book is set up in here just by a small conversation between him and Batman in one of those books. What I found most interesting about this book is there's a conversation between Batman and Robin, who's Tim Drake at the time, and because there's been a bunch of Robins if you're not familiar with that, about how Batman hopes that there will always be a Batman. And they talk about Jean Paul Valley. They talk about Dick Grayson stepping up to the plate and not really fulfilling it at this time anyway. He does it a second time in the future. But Batman tells Tim, basically, my hope is that you will take up the mantle when I'm done or too old or, die. And Tim's like, whoa, that's a lot to process, man. Very interesting conversation. I think the most interesting part is... to me, maybe Cataclysm should be like double sized as far as the trade goes, because this is really the aftermath of the earthquake. You have people leaving in droves, they can't turn on the power, the water lines, water mains are all busted up. So you're seeing the city decay, and Batman is watching the city. And the most interesting thing about this book is the portrait of Bruce and Batman. And again, like I said about when I was reviewing Cataclysm, that's still here. Bruce encountering something he does not have the power to stop. He doesn't have the power to avoid it. There's no crime, no detective work that's really needed. It's just him swinging around the city, helping people get out of rubble, encountering criminals and looters. That's kind of a big part of this book, is there's a bunch of looters. He's always stopping a looter while he's trying to help somebody, things like that. Some looters are trapped in a bank vault at one point in time, and they have to make a decision whether they're going to fight Batman and try and crawl out the hole he came in through, or if they're going to just allow him to rescue him and go on from there. But you're seeing the decay of everything and setting up stuff I never really understood when I read No Man's Land. Everything was kind of carved into pieces, and the city being carved into pieces starts a little bit here. You can see the inklings of it. I think maybe it's set up more in Volume 2, so I'm excited to read that. But really, the most interesting part of this is the same thing. As good as Cataclysm was, this is just as good, because it's really looking at Batman and making him realize how he is just one man, and he is not a superpowered person, he is just a man. And this drives that home to Batman every single time. If you thought Bruce was running ragged before Nightfall in the Prelude to Nightfall book, which I reviewed on the channel here in the Nightfall Part 1 review, you haven't seen anything yet, because Bruce is running ragged here. The cave is falling apart, so at the same time that they're trying to save people, they're also trying to protect their own secrets and stuff like that. And then at the same time, Bruce Wayne, in his regular persona, not as Batman, is trying to do things to help save the city in terms of money, in terms of organizing, and at the same time, as he's much as good as he can do, he's still not able to do enough. So it's like these two sides are beating down on Bruce Wayne on this one guy. So he's seeing the city cave and crumble all around him. And what does that do to Batman, I think, is the most interesting part about this tale. Seeing that little decline each and every time. But like I said, it's very interesting how it's done, because every issue is kind of a one and done. But you do see things are mentioned, they do reference things that happen in other Bat books, things like that. But you do see like the slow decay of Batman, being run ragged, exhausted, Alfred's in here, that kind of stuff. The weirdest thing that sticks out is the return of this Chuck Dixon character. Oh gosh, if I can find him. He showed up in the Night Quest books, I believe. And he's like this pink guy. I want to say his name was Maniac or Berserk or something like that. I just flipped through it. Here he is. Ballistic. That's his name. This guy right here. I think is this Jim Aparo? Maybe it's Graham. I think it's Graham Nolan, actually. No, maybe a different one. Anyway, it's a Chuck Dixon tale, and it's kind of fun because this was the weirdest part of reading the Night Quest volumes, is this pink guy show up who's like an ex-cop that's been altered to be this kind of superhero. I don't know if this came out of like the Bloodlines event in the 90s, or this is just some weird Chuck Dixon stuff. But anyway, he shows up, he says he met Batman before, and Batman goes, "No, you didn't," and then has to realize to himself, like, "Oh, you met Jean-Paul Valley." And he even makes a comment on how Batman was okay before with him shooting people, but now he's not okay. And he's like, "What's the deal, Batman?" It's just like the only tale in here that kind of sticks out as not as good as the other stuff because of this weird ballistic character. Because everybody else is grounded, all that sort of stuff. What this hasn't answered yet is, where's the Justice League? Where's Superman? Where are all these other heroes? All these questions that people have about the Marvel movies, I have a little bit about this. You would think that Green Lantern would show up. I think it's Kyle Rayner at this time, right? You would think Superman would show up. All the Super Friends, the Justice League, Wonder Woman. So far, they haven't shown up to help Batman. And that is, or even offer to help Gotham. I want to say there was something in there a little bit later. Maybe there's something in Volume 2 that kind of addresses that fact. But again, there's so much widespread destruction of the entire city. Maybe it's hard for them to really figure out how they're going to help everybody. But yeah, Gotham City's falling apart, and it's all happening here in the Road to No Man's Land Volume 1. I'm surprised how much I enjoyed reading this, but it just speaks to the quality of the early 2000s Batman, the whole line all the way across, because this was really fun to read, really well done, and I didn't mind that it wasn't one big story, that it was a bunch of little done-in-ones, because it gave you a little bit of breather. It didn't feel so thick and long. Like, I breezed through it because every story was really well done, really well told. And that speaks to the quality of the writers and artists that were on the Bat books at this time. Will we ever see that again? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But man, oh man, this was a great read. So 2 thumbs up. Highly recommend Road to No Man's Land Volume 1. And we will see you guys back here for the next review with Road to No Man's Land Volume 2 in the coming days and weeks. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know down below what you think of this book. What's your favorite era of the Bat books? Let's talk about it down in the comments. Hey everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. Today we're going to be talking about Road to No Man's Land Volume 2. This is the Batman trade paperback collection. But before we get into the review, I want to ask you to please do one thing. Please subscribe. Helps me out, helps the channel grow, lets you know when I drop new videos, all that good stuff. Now, Road to No Man's Land Volume 1, I raved about. I have a review up on the channel. You can go check that out. It is a fantastic, fantastic read, especially as a follow-up to the Cataclysm story. Now, these are like out-of-print trades, but they are all available, I guess, digitally on Comixology if you want to check them out that way. Or if you can hunt them down, you will probably pay over cover price. Or if you have a lucky comic shop that still has this stuff, you could pay cover price. But Cataclysm and Road to No Man's Land Volume 1 and Volume 2 are all collected in the recently released Road to No Man's Land Omnibus. Now, as fantastic as Road to No Man's Land Volume 1 was, as like a extension of the Cataclysm storyline, which I loved because it's putting Batman in new situations, Road to No Man's Land Volume 2, and we'll probably just say Volume 2 from here on out because that's a mouthful, does kind of like a swift decline from the quality of stories that you got in Volume 1. So where volume 1 kind of had this, like, you know, they were all kind of self-contained and you never really moved anything along, Road to No Man's Land kind of pushes all that aside. And I don't know if this was just like a planned thing, if editorial actually said, like, you know what, we're gonna do self-contained stories, maybe a couple of two-parters, but not a ton. And then when we get to the latter half, when we start, you know, calling it, because this is when they had the Road to No Man's Land banner on the sides of the cover. Volume 1, their covers say Aftershock. So, in terms of like trade paperbacks, I guess that's why it's Volume 1 and Volume 2, even though Volume 1 should really be called like Aftershock, because that's what's on all the covers in here on the banner. But this actually sets up, like, not really why Gotham was kind of abandoned. The reason is very arbitrary. It's very political. What it mainly does is introduce Nicholas Scratch, because Nicholas Scratch is the guy who's kind of puppeteering and trying to get everything behind the scenes to become his way. What's weird about it, and I have read No Man's Land before, not this particular storyline. I've read Cataclysm and the No Man's Land in the original trade paperbacks from like 2001 or something like that, a long time ago, before they got collected in these versions. This contains the Azrael stories, and I've never read anything in this one before. As a big Azrael fan, haven't read all of his solo series, the original run. So it kicks off with an issue of Azrael, number 47, which is this one, and it kind of introduces Nicholas Scratch, and Batman asks Azrael to please go, you know, not hunt down Nicholas Scratch, but stop him from murdering some senator, you know, and that's kind of what happens in that issue and the next. So this book contains Azrael 47 through 50. So they do like 2 issues here and then 2 issues at the bookend. And that happens a lot in this book. There's multiple storylines that are collected in here that all have the Road to No Man's Land banner on the covers, right? You've got issues of Batman, Detective Comics, Shadow of the Bat, and Azrael, right? And all of them have like 4 issues in here, but they tend to like split them up. So Batman has the like Bruce Wayne goes to Washington storyline. That's I think like 3 or 4 issues, and the first 2 chunks are after that first chunk of Azrael. And that's when Bruce is going to Washington and talking to people and trying to get them to get the government to pay up money to help subsidize the reconstruction of Gotham, because it's not something that insurance or Bruce Wayne alone can fund, right? That's kind of cut in half. And then you switch over to Detective Comics, and then you see Nightwing and Robin doing their stuff, going against Mr. Scratch's, you know, henchmen or whatever. And then you cut back to Batman, and then you cut back to Azrael, who's trying to not kill, but stop Nicholas Scratch from doing more things. And the weird part about reading this is, instead of like pepper them in like 1 issue of this, 1 issue of this, 1 issue of this, 1 issue of this, instead of also doing something where they like chunkify everything and just do, all right, here's all the Azrael issues, here's all the Batman, all the Detective Comics stuff, they split it in half, and that makes for a disjointed reading experience. So the only storyline in here that's collected all together as one big chunk is the Shadow of the Bat storyline, which is drawn by Mark Buckingham, who's done Fables and other stuff before then. He's doing still the same like Kelly Jones inspired stuff he was doing in Volume 1 that I'd talked about and really liked. However, the storyline is just, you know, it's Jeremiah Arkham talking to the Arkham inmates and trying to keep order in Arkham. And then at the end of the story, he kind of just gives up, right? So there's no Batman characters, it's just the inmates, and while normally you'd think that could be a strong storyline, for me, just focusing on a bunch of Batman villains in Arkham Asylum never really works for me. It's not my thing. I know that other people really enjoy those types of stories, but for me, you gotta sprinkle a little bit of Batman in there. Like, I'm more interested when Batman or Robin or Nightwing's in it, but if you just take all the main heroes out of it, I'm not that interested unless you've got a really interesting take like Harleen, for example, even though that has a sprinkling of Batman. So that's the only, you know, that's like 3 or 4 issues. It's this big chunk of the book right here that happens. So what you lose here is, instead of reading issue 1 of this storyline, issue 1 of the second storyline, issue 1 of the third, and so on and so forth, is the timing is all off. So events will happen in the Bruce Goes to Washington storyline, right? And then you'll go into the next chunk of the next storyline, and you'll be before what you had just read in the book. So the mapping is kind of way off. I think I would have preferred if they'd just done 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, or I don't know if you would, if like reading all the storyline in one big chunk, you know, here's all of Batman, here's all of Detective, here's all of Azrael. I don't know if that would have been satisfying either, but the way that they did it, I think they tried to split the difference. It did not really work as a reading experience here. So that's what I mean when I'm saying like this is, I don't give this a 2 thumbs up, even though it does have the real meat of the Road to No Man's Land title, just because it's not as a good reading experience as the Volume 1 is. But again, this is dealing with heroes and saving people and just the nitty-gritty of being a hero day to day in a unsurmountable, unstoppable, Sisyphusian task. Whereas this one kind of moves away from that and gets into some politics, and it's just not as well written, or maybe because it's not such great stakes as Volume 1, you lose that type of gravitas and stuff like that. And the way that everything's kind of like chunked together doesn't help it itself either. So, that's why I'm not really giving this my full recommendation. I think it's fun, but again, I would say, if there was one to skip, it might be this one, or I might say, you know what, just go read the Bruce Goes to Washington storyline and maybe the Azrael stuff. So, yeah, I think the Azrael stuff is in here because maybe they realized that, if they're going to collect Road to No Man's Land, you have to introduce Nicholas Scratch because he's the guy pulling the strings. What's weird, though, is that Nicholas Scratch never really appears in other Batman titles. I don't know if he does in the new No Man's Land collections. I know the ones that I read long ago, he was not in it at all. So and I think he gets relegated to the Azrael issues because I think he becomes like an Azrael villain or something. So it's weird. I guess because they introduced him in Azrael 47, he kind of stays there. He does show up a little bit in the Detective Comics stuff with Robin and Nightwing, but he's never really like in the forefront. And even from what I can remember of reading the original No Man's Land collections, which did not include any Azrael issues, he wasn't present there at all. So if he stays in the Azrael books, maybe that's why they put the Azrael books in these new collections, because they were never collected before, and that has the Nicholas Scratch storyline, who kind of kicked off the idea of abandoning Gotham for the United States. So that's kind of a weird little puzzle, is if this guy's going to be a major player, why was he relegated to the Azrael book as a villain? So it's kind of weird. As far as the writer and artist go, you've got great artists. You got, what's his face? Jim Aparo is still back, even though he had apparently retired way back in like Batman 500 was his big retirement, or like he was leaving the Bat books for a while, but he never goes very far because he's still drawing here in the late 90s and doing a phenomenal job. You've got David Roach on inks. There's something about whoever's inking Jim Aparo, like there's something unmistakably the same every single time. Like I don't know if you can have a bad inker on Jim Aparo artwork. If you like his artwork, that is. I think he comes off a little flat sometimes. It's very classic, very 70s. And in the 90s, and as we push into like the modern era, I don't think it works as well. You got Mark Buckingham doing this, the Arkham Asylum stuff I talked about before, which I think is okay. And he's doing his weird Mark Buckingham border stuff that he did all across Fables. This isn't as fancy as some of those, but, it is what it is. I don't remember seeing any Graham Nolan in this book, so maybe he was taking a break. You do have Roger Robinson doing the Azrael stuff, who is, I think, a really phenomenal artist. Just I don't know what happened to him or where he went or why he didn't break big, but I always enjoyed seeing his stuff on Azrael, and he does a good job here as well. So you've got Denny O'Neil, you've got Chuck Dixon all over this book. You've got Alan Grant is in here. And I think that's it. Kelly Puckett does a little bit in the Batman Chronicles story, which I don't know why that was included. The other weird thing about this trade paperback, and I'm not sure when this came out, but if it did come out at the beginning of the No Man's Land storyline, I have no idea why. So this is the Secret Files and Origins, that's Azrael's new costume over here, And I remember having this issue as a single issue, and I read it, but I don't remember if this came out. This says December '99. I don't know if that came out at the beginning of the storyline. It doesn't make sense because the end of the thing, there's like a timeline which basically goes through all the events of No Man's Land. So if this did indeed in fact come out before No Man's Land, like you're just giving away all of your stories. I think it came out in the middle of No Man's Land, but I don't know why they put it in here at all. Like there's stuff in here about Poison Ivy, when they do like the secret file of Poison Ivy, stuff that she does, you know, in No Man's Land with Clayface, which is one of my favorite storylines. They introduced David Kane and Batgirl had not even been introduced by the time this book was coming out. Like she makes her first appearance in the No Man's Land storyline, so to have a whole file on her and say when this was coming out, I don't like. This is just a weird place to put the secret files. If you've never read No Man's Land before, I don't recommend reading it right in this trade. I would come back to it maybe in the middle or something like that, or maybe at the end, if you like that sort of thing. But yeah, and there's just the outside forces. You know, it's telling you that Bane's coming in at the end of No Man's Land, and you know this guy up here, I know who he is. If you're a fan of Superman villains, you might know who he is as well. So it's just really weird that to put it at the end of Road to No Man's Land Volume 2 instead of in the middle of one of the No Man's Land trades. So I don't know. There you have it, my review of Road to No Man's Land Volume 2. I'm looking forward to jumping into the actual big event, No Man's Land. There are 4 volumes, and we will do reviews as we go and read each volume. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know down below if your favorite event is No Man's Land, like it's one of my favorite Batman events. It's phenomenal. I love it, and I can't wait to read more. So we will see you guys next time here in the Funny Pages. Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I'm your host, Brent Casina. Sorry about the hat. If you can't see my eyes, I have hair, but I didn't put any gel in it today, so I wanted to spare you that. So we're going to be talking about Batman No Man's Land Volume 1. This is the new printings. These came out 5 years ago or so. I've done an overview of all of them once I completed my entire new set. Yeah, these were printed in 2011. Okay, so this is actually a 10-year-old trade. I've gotten a couple comments on my overview video I did a couple, maybe a year or two ago about whether to read this or maybe the omnibus, if there's an omnibus coming out of No Man's Land. And I would say it's a comfort thing. Like, there are 4 of these trade paperbacks, and they are massive. Like, this thing itself holds, I don't know, 18 issues or something like that if you just count what's included. Some of those issues are double size, like the Batman Chronicles issues all have multiple stories. But before we get into the review, I would ask you to please do one thing. Please subscribe. Helps me out, helps the channel grow, lets you know when I drop new videos and all that stuff. Now, back to talking about the book. So if you're wanting to know whether you should get these, if you can seek these out and find them, I think they're still available maybe at your local comic shop or your favorite online retailer or the resale. Just make sure you go out there and look really, really hard before you go and do the eBay thing like I did. Like, I bought my version of the Cataclysm trade from 2010 with this same, like, lettering and stuff and spine for $60, and then I went into a different local comic shop here in town, and they had it for cover price. Now, these were $30. I think normally now they might run like 40 or something like that if they were printed today. They're pretty thick, and they're well put together. But yeah, I would say definitely look around a bunch of places first before you go on the eBay route, if that's how you want to read it. I don't think there's really been an omnibus announced for No Man's Land yet. There is the Road to No Man's Land omnibus, but for me, I don't have any omnibuses. I have some deluxe editions, but just I have a limited amount of shelving, and my shelf is currently laid out for all trade paperback trim sizes. And if I make it bigger for oversized books like omnibus or deluxe editions, I would lose a lot of that shelf space. So me, I'm a trade collector. I like reading them. I like not having to read it on a desk or anything like that. I can sit back here on the couch on my man cave next to my light, open it up, read it, have no issues. I don't really want to have a big thick omnibus like I'm reading The World of Ice and Fire on and off, and that's a massive, massive book, like bigger than an omnibus in terms of size, and it's a pain in the ass to read because it is so large. So for me, I like trades, regular hardcovers. I think they're fun. But anyway, on to the review. So we've done reviews of Batman Cataclysm and Road to No Man's Land Volume 1 and Volume 2. I am happy to say that with No Man's Land Volume 1, this returns to the form of Road to No Man's Land Volume 1. If you watched my review of that, you know I loved it. I didn't like 2 as much. Road to No Man's Land Volume 1 is a mouthful, so stick with me. Was more vignettes, one single stories, 2-issue stories, that kind of thing. And it was all the aftershock stuff of the quake, more in line of what the Cataclysm book was. And Road to No Man's Land Volume 2 had some stuff that was maybe 4 main stories that were all strung together in different pieces, but it was more about thrusting Gotham into this status quo. I'm happy to say that this volume is more along the terms of quality and good to read of Road to No Man's Land Volume 1 and Cataclysm. This is a phenomenal read. It's fantastic. And this is the time, this starts for me, my favorite Batman stories when this is 20 years ago now when this was coming out, 1998, I think. And I was probably reading them in 99, 2000 when the original trades came out. But you just had a slew of heavy hitters in here. Greg Rucka is in here. I think you got Devin Grayson here, Bob Gale, Greg Rucka I talked about. Who else is in here? Denny O'Neil doing the Azrael stuff. Kelly Puckett, Denny O'Neil as well. Lisa Klink wrote this story in Shadow of the Bat 86, Home Sweet Home. It was a little one-shot story. That is drawn by Guy Davis of BPRD fame. I really, really love this story. It was just so much fun. So what's cool about this book is that it's a bunch of short stories that are, they don't do. It's probably not released. I don't know. It's laid out in a weird way. I don't know what the strategy was when they were releasing these original issues. Because if you look at the table of contents, it starts off with Batman No Man's Land number 1, and then there's 4 more issues that are written by Bob Gale and have art by Alex Maleev. So it's jumping around the different Bat titles, but if you're buying all of them week to week, you would get the same story, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. And I think that's a really cool approach, the way they did that. And because they did that, you're reading it, I guess you're reading it in release order, per se, because they hired a writer and an artist to do an arc, and they said, go write this arc. It's 2 issues, it's 4 issues, whatever it is. Go draw it all, and then we will put it out, not monthly, but across the line in one entire month in one fell swoop. And that makes the reading experience really enjoyable because they organized it in the same way that they did with Road to No Man's Land and stuff like that, where they strung the stories together. And I think maybe the editors at the time realized, hey, this event will be stronger if we have longer stories that we put across the titles, and instead of one guy only writing Batman and he's only on Batman and you gotta wait a month for his No Man's Land story to continue, we're gonna organize this thing in such a way that you're gonna get more stories and more great writers if you pick up more Bat books. Like if you're just picking up Batman, you may not get the Greg Rucka story part 1. You might get part 2, and part 1 was in Shadow of the Bat the week earlier. So that's kind of how this book is laid out. And as far as a reading experience, you don't even notice because you're just reading it like, oh, it makes sense. This is part 1 of the story. I'm going to read part 2, part 3, part 4, and then that ends. And then immediately following the Alex Maleev story, you get the Devin Grayson and Dale Eaglesham story about the, involving the Huntress and a Catholic priest who's trying to maintain neutrality in the war of gangs and stuff like that. Just wonderful, wonderful stuff. While the Scarecrow is trying to mess it all up. It's fun times. And then in between some of these stories, you get, an issue of Azrael when he's on the hunt for Nicholas Scratch, who is the, kind of mastermind behind the No Man's Land idea. Or once he gets into Gotham, he's, hot on the trail and Azrael's facing the Joker. And then there's a 2-part story where he's helping out Barbara Gordon and Leslie Tompkins. at the very end of this volume, which I never read before because the Azrael stories were not originally collected. There's a lot of stuff in here that was not in the original trades back in the early 2000s that I've never read before, and they are just as good, if not more essential to the overall story of No Man's Land, I think, than any other one. Like I was saying, that one with the Guy Davis art, written by Lisa Klink, the Home Sweet Home, it's just a single issue story about one man living in his home and building it, and not giving up on his home, not giving up on Gotham, and coming to terms with how he's prepared for this violence, and how tracking one gang roaming through the No Man's Land versus others, and then coming up with basically a kid he helped raise, or helped this kid learn how to ride a bike, and this kid's now in a gang, and he's coming up and he's going, "You're not gonna shoot me, like, think of all the things I did for you," and the kid's like, "Don't make me do it, old man." Just a really, really great story, great little snippet. It doesn't involve a bunch of Batman characters, just a citizen of Gotham. And that is what is so strong about this No Man's Land idea, is that I think it allowed the Batman writers to just pull back from being Batman all the time, and to really find characters or find ideas that would push people to the limits and push people to the brink. Not just Batman and our superheroes, but the other characters in Gotham. So if you haven't remembered, there was an earthquake in the Cataclysm trade, and in the Road to No Man's Land, we saw Gotham descend further into this hellhole, basically, and the U.S. government has declared it a No Man's Land, and they gave everybody their last chance to get out in No Man's Land Volume 2. Lots of people left, some people didn't. Jeremiah Arkham let all the crazies out of Arkham Asylum at the end of that, and that's where we've left off. So this book actually picks up 3 months after the end of Road to No Man's Land Volume 2. Batman's disappeared, and in that wake, you've had all these gangs spring up. So thinking about my Road to No Man's Land Volume 2 gripe, is there was a Secret Files issue in there that I have. I still have the original issue. At the end of that book, and I was going, why is this here? It's not really at the beginning of, like, No Man's Land technically hasn't started yet. Well, I think they put it there because of this 90-day gap where Gotham just descended into madness, and you had all these gang territories spring up. So it really was a primer on what maybe the gangs were. If that was when that was published, the only issue is that it tells the story of No Man's Land throughout the entire year in that Secret Files. So I don't know why that was there, when it was published or whatever, but maybe that's why it was there. I was just trying to think to kind of explain this 90-day absence. So yeah, you get a whole lot of setup in this first 4-issue arc, written by Bob Gale, drawn by Alex Maleev. Now this Alex Maleev is not the Alex Maleev that later showed up on Daredevil or Moon Knight or Scarlet with Brian Michael Bendis. This is his, like, I guess I would call it non-scratchy stuff. There's it's still good, it's just not as detailed or photoshoppy or reference heavy as his later stuff, like similar to how who's the guy that traces everything? Greg Land. Okay, so Greg Land now is an okay artist, he's pretty good, but you look at the stuff he was doing on Nightwing 20 years ago, and that stuff is non-photoshopped, not traced, not light boarded, no bunch of porn references or whatever, and that stuff looks real, like it looks phenomenal. And then you look at the newer stuff and you're like, man, like there's something off about this. There's something to this Alex Maleev stuff in here that reminds me of Greg Land back when he was good and maybe more respected. But not to say Alex Maleev has lost any of that respect. It's just it's a totally different look than stuff you've seen before. There's just a phenomenal array of artists and writers in here. I mean, Roger Robinson on Azrael, I've never really thought of him as a definitive Azrael artist. I mean, is there really anybody? It's not really that big of a character, Brent. You're just picking on him. But I think he does a great job here in the Azrael issues. Certainly, it's fun to look at early Dale Eaglesham, with some different inkers and realize how strong his style was, even before he jumped on JSA and did some later Green Lantern stuff with Kyle Rayner, stuff like that. And it's like, wow, his stuff was strong 20 years ago. It's just as strong now. So it's a whole lot of fun to realize how good of an artist, how good of a draftsman some of these guys are, early into their careers. Just really, really cool. Like, look at this Batman. This is Dale Eaglesham Batman. It's fucking cool. Huntress is in this arc, really fun. His Scarecrow is really terrifying. This is his Scarecrow. It reminds me a lot of the Super Friends Scarecrow with like a bunch of straw and stuff hanging out. And this really like slender and tall, frightening creature. Really, really cool. I like that arc. Maybe it was a little bit too long. It was like 4 issues, and I was like, do we really need to focus on this priest? But we'll see. What is also cool is throughout this these storylines, like you're getting one main storyline per arc, or a one and done. But throughout, peppered in here is the introduction of a new Batgirl. Batgirl is introduced in like the first issue or second, and then you also have the ongoing storyline of the GCPD of Jim Gordon, Harvey Bullock, Sarah Essen, Detective Montoya, and these cops realizing that they're not going to be able to be cops necessarily. They may have to do some dirty things to maintain control or maintain power or law and order, however you want to look at it. And they basically set 2 gangs upon each other and step in after a bunch of people have been killed in order to take control of the territory so it's not as crazy. Cassandra Cain is this Batgirl, obviously. I don't think it's a spoiler, really. But it's weird to see this Batgirl talk a lot as opposed to later on. And now that I'm saying it, I'm thinking, oh, I think maybe I stumbled onto remembering the reason why this Batgirl talks a lot compared to later on in the No Man's Land story. Maybe we'll talk about it in a later volume. I think it comes up there in a later volume. But Phil Winslade does some stuff in here. This Black Mask storyline with Greg Rucka and Frank Turan. Like really, really gritty, grimy art. This Batman's just like skinny and demented. Like, look at his teeth here. It's just crazy. That's really dark and fun to read. It's really cool to see all these different art styles. And then you got who's this guy? Jason Pearson coming on later on, right after that gritty Black Mask storyline, and it's like, wow, this is just a big shift in terms of art style, but this story just lets these artists go to town, and it's really fun to see how much they can do with the art styles, with the story, and it's not really that big of a jump because I think it is so almost segmented. Every time you switch to a new art style, it's a new story that fits that art style. So that's fun. I do think the story about Superman may be the weakest one. It's a one-shot. Is it written by Greg Rucka? I can't remember. But it's a one-shot where Superman... No, it's written by Kelly Plunkett. I'm sorry. Drawn by John Bogdanove, legendary Superman artist from the 90s. Although his inker on here makes him look a little, like, way different than he was maybe 5 years before doing the Death and Reign of Superman stuff. The inker on this is Eduardo Barreto, who's a fairly well-known inker. Does a good job normally. Just didn't think it fit that well. But this story was a little weird because Superman shows up and he's like, hey, Gotham, I'm here to save you. I'm here to help you. And he does some things and then very quickly, almost too quickly, realizes that things in Gotham don't work the way that they do in other cities. And it took Batman a little while to realize this too in the beginning of the book. So it's kind of funny to see that Superman go through the same realization, but instead of staying and helping out, like, Superman leaves at the end of the story. Maybe he'll return. I don't remember exactly what happens, but I thought that was interesting and maybe a little too convenient that it happened in one issue. But hey, how many issues are we going to spend on Superman in a Batman book and a Bat title? So that's my review for Batman No Man's Land Volume 1. I think it's a whole lot of fun. Definitely encourage you guys to read it, because we're in for one hell of a ride in terms of Batman stories. Like I think I've alluded to in earlier videos, Cataclysm, No Man's Land, from here on out, and then you get the Bruce Wayne murderer stuff to War Games. All that stuff is great stuff. The next 5 years of Batman are phenomenal. And this is the beginning, in my opinion, of that phenomenal run of Bat books, just for a long time. So stick around. We're going to talk more No Man's Land as I read through all these trades. You can find a playlist at the end here with everything related to No Man's Land, reviews, overviews, Cataclysm, all that stuff will be in there. So check it out. And I encourage you guys to go back and find these trades, or the omnibus if there is one, whenever you're watching this, and read it. It's a phenomenal story. One of the best Batman events ever, in my opinion. So there you go. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. I would love to talk to you down there. Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. I'm your host, Brent Casina, as always, and today we're going to be reviewing Batman No Man's Land Volume 2. And where is the 2 on the side? It's right here, itty bitty there. So we're gonna be talking about this. I just finished it, and I know I just posted the Volume 1 review maybe a day or so ago. But man, I had to pick up Volume 2 right away and talk about it. So before we get into the review, let me ask you to please do one thing. Please subscribe. Helps me out, helps the channel grow, lets you know when I drop new videos, all that good stuff. So Batman No Man's Land Volume 2. So we are deep into No Man's Land at this point. Lots of cool stuff here. I really enjoyed this run. This trade actually makes up like probably what will be the second half of the upcoming No Man's Land omnibus. So if you're watching these reviews in preparation of getting that, come back after you've read it. You know, we're gonna be talking about some spoilers and stuff. But this, I've read No Man's Land. I have not read these trades, and now I've done an overview of the trades and compared them to the old trades, which were like printed in 2000, almost 20 years ago. So that's the No Man's Land that I had read. It was in 5 smaller trades, and that had a lot of stuff left out of it, as it became apparent when I read this volume and I start to read the 3rd volume. I'm not halfway through, but I'm a good ways through this one. This is Volume 3. And what I also find is kind of funny is that they use a cover from the previous issue on the cover of Volume 2, and it's the same thing with Volume 3. Volume 3, this is a beautiful Dale Eaglesham cover. That issue is actually collected in here, and that cover is in the back cover gallery. A little bit weird, but okay, we'll take it. I guess maybe they thought they couldn't use many of these covers. Like, this is a beautiful cover. Why not use this for Volume 2? I maybe understand why. There's some stuff with Nightwing in here, these Scott McDaniel covers, which are phenomenal. There's the issue that I had read the most out of No Man's Land, which was this one. This is the Clayface and Poison Ivy 3-parter. I had this issue when I was growing up, and I reread this issue over and over again. And that's also the back cover here. Beautiful cover by Glenn Orbick. And then there's a Catwoman tale at the end, and that's it. So some of this book has to do with, the beginning half is really Batman figuring out he can't do this alone. So there's a big moment in the middle of this book where he says, like, assemble the family. That's the big moment of this book. And maybe the reason why they used that cover with Batman and the family on it, no Azrael, I noticed. Where's the Azrael love? Is because the Volume 3 is more about, so far, as you're exploring the family and stuff, there's stuff with Robin, Batgirl, Nightwing, all that kind of things. But this is interesting. So we're set up in No Man's Land. We're no longer exploring who all the players are, all the gangs, and all that stuff we were doing in Volume 1. This is a little bit, not as... It's kind of segmented. It runs the same way that Volume 1 does, where if there is an arc of a story, they will group them all together, and then they will intersperse that with onesie-twosies if that's how editorial planned it. I don't know if this is publishing order. Maybe I'll check on the 3rd review if this is actually publishing order. But again, it's done the same way, where you have a writer and artist teaming up to do a 2 or 3 part story, and then they're actually publishing it across the different Bat books. So you have like Claim Jumping, which is the first story here. It's a 2-parter with Greg Rucka, Mike Deodato Jr. on art. And it runs across Batman Legends of the Dark Knight 119, and then Batman Part 2, Batman Shadow of the Bat 87, which I can only presume either came out like the same week or the following week. What is nice, though, is that they've kind of figured out a way to put Claim Jumping in as the first story here with this new map of Gotham to show you like what the current status of where the gangs are. So it shows you how the Blue Boys have kind of expanded. Remember, we had the Gang War in Volume 1. That's represented here. And this is part of the issue. Like, there's captions over it. So I wonder if there was like a real concerted effort to show a map every couple of months to show how the territories had changed and expanded and stuff like that. So it's really interesting. And the other thing about this is that now that the Batman has come back after Volume 1, looking at that map, Batman's territory is huge, and it's just marked in yellow as him with the bat symbol in yellow. It's massive. And I was like, really? So Batman owns almost most of Gotham compared to everyone else when this book starts. So again, real interesting stuff. There's a little thing in here that's a little wonky, is the issue where Batman tells Oracle, assemble the family, comes before a couple of issues. One of them is the Young Justice No Man's Land special, where Superboy, Impulse, and Robin try to break into Gotham with this green merkid, or merboy, I don't know what his role was. This guy right here. And it happens in the reading order directly after Batman says, assemble the family, and they've all kind of come up with Batman and said, hey, what's up? So that reading order was a little weird. And then you have this issue with Robin and Nightwing, which actually tells their tale of how they got into the city after Batman summoned them. Again, happens the issue after you see the family come together and kind of say like, you're all right, you're welcome here, I need your help. So that was the only weird thing about the reading order, but hey, I mean, what are you going to do? Like, that happened at the end of a 2-parter that I guess they wanted to put in certain places. So it wouldn't really make sense to stick certain things in other places. Maybe it's what worked the best. I don't know. Again, if this is the way it is in the omnibus, great. Then we're talking about the same thing. If not, I don't know what to tell you, because the omnibus hadn't come out at this point when this video was published. And I'm not buying omnibuses. I'm purely a trades guy. Like, my shelves over here are all, I have one like big long bookshelf for all my trades. I haven't needed to expand it yet. I've kind of, I went on a binging spree during the pandemic, honestly, of buying new books or buying books that I wanted on my shelf, because normally it wasn't, I had like 4 of them and that was it, and a lot of stuff on digital and stuff like that. But in the pandemic, I want to sit down and actually hold books, and now I'm running out of room. So we have a problem that I'm going to have to address upcoming here in the man cave. But so I'm not really buying omnibuses or anything like that, because they just take up too much shelf space. They're too big. Like, if I made the shelf full of omnibuses, I would lose probably 1 or 2 shelves, and I don't want to do that. But anyway, let's talk about this book. By far, my favorite story in here are the Nightwing 3-parter, where he goes to Blackgate Prison to take it back from lockup. That was really cool. It's towards the end of the book. It's got Scott McDaniel on art, and this is an issue of Nightwing, or 3 issues of Nightwing here, written by Chuck Dixon, I believe, and that was really cool. And the nice thing here too is that they're actually leaving in the threads of the regular Nightwing run. Like, they're not taking out these pages with Blockbuster, who's in Bloodhaven and doesn't, there's nothing to do with No Man's Land, or the Nightwing imposter, if you remember this guy. They don't take out those pages. I mean, that's probably something that was set up before Nightwing came to No Man's Land, and it's probably continued after he leaves No Man's Land. But it is nice that they're including the entire whole issue of this book, and not just, removing pages like they were doing in the old trades I had read. Frankly, I think they put in certain pages and didn't have whole issues. But my favorite story in this little thing here was the Clayface Poison Ivy story. I'm trying to flip to the title page if I can find it. Was it? I want to say it was like Heart of Clay, Feet of Clay. I'm sure it's wrong. Fruit of the Earth. Yeah, that's a much better title. Fruit of the Earth. It's a 3-parter here, and it's got Greg Rucka on writing, Dan Jurgens doing I don't know if it's layouts or pencils, but you got Bill Sienkiewicz doing the inks, and it's definitely Sienkiewicz looking. I mean, that looks nothing like a Dan Jurgens face. Like, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Dan Jurgens came out and said, yeah, I did all the art, and then Jurgens just erased all of it, or Sienkiewicz erased all of it and did it himself. But man, this story is so fun. So this is the first time we encounter Poison Ivy in the No Man's Land story. We've seen her on the map. We've heard tales of Robinson Park where she's operating, but we haven't really gone and see her yet. So this is the first time we encounter her. And again, Batman is striking deals with villains in order to maintain the order of Gotham City. And he tells Poison Ivy, if I get rid of Clayface for you, you're going to grow fruit and you're going to make deliveries here on this day and this day, and you're going to keep the kids that are helping you safe, and you're going to take anybody in that wants to be here, and you're not going to hurt anybody else, and you're not going to leave the territory either. And she agrees. You know, Batman, if there's something happens to me, you got to come help me. So it's basically Batman running a protection racket with the other villains of Gotham City as he consolidates power and tries to rein in all the chaos and anarchy that is roaming the city. The other cool thing that I noticed reading these new versions of the trades anyway is the Azrael story, which was left out. And Azrael, you know, we saw in Road to No Man's Land Volume 2, we had Nicholas Scratch introduced in the Batman and detective books as well, and then Shadow of the Bat, or not Shadow, Azrael became Agent of the Bat in that book, Volume 2, as he went after Nicholas Scratch. That seems to be Azrael's ongoing tale, is hunting this guy. And we have a couple issues here where Azrael actually takes the new Batgirl. Would you believe me if I told you there were actually 3 Batgirls in this book? Counting Oracle, not really counting, but there's actually 2 different ones. So it does answer the question I had in the last review of why is Batgirl talking so much, this new Batgirl? I had forgotten why, and it happens early on in Volume 2. But anyway, Nicholas Scratch is this guy here. And he's the guy who pushed for the government to abandon No Man's Land in Road to No Man's Land Volume 2 in that volume. And then he's kind of given up his celebrity and come to Gotham to try and see who he can control and how much he can get away with, frankly. He's an egomaniac, and he's just trying to rile things up. So Batman has tasked Jean-Paul Valley, Azrael, to go and take him out, to take him down, and not kill anybody, you know. So it's kind of a test. So there's a really neat thing here where they're using the idea like Azrael gets captured, he's not in costume when he gets captured, and then he has to figure out a way to get his costume back on, not because he wants to be in costume, but because he needs the costume to trigger his conditioning. So and they do explain it in the book, and I didn't quite remember it, but if you've read Sword of Azrael, or even I think somewhere in Night Quest they alluded to it a little bit as well, and definitely in Fallen Angel, the only Azrael trade that's come out of that Jean-Paul Valley run, they talk about it where like they conditioned everybody to become Azrael when they put on the costume. So he tricks the guys into putting the costume on, and even tricks them so far as to put on his mask. And his mask, as soon as the mask is put on, you can see the narrative captions go, and then his voice changes into this thick Azrael growl, which is this caption box here. So that's a cool little thing, and then he beats the shit out of Nicholas Scratch, as one would, right? But it's also cool to see Azrael not just doing this, but he's helping the new Batgirl. He's kind of training her, or taking her under his wing in this adventure. And then he's also doing things with Leslie Tompkins. And he's kind of protecting her camp, her little encampment there. And so I think that's going to develop in further issues. And I think that's pretty cool. It's something I've never seen before, never read, because they left Azrael out of the No Man's Land story in the initial trades that I had. Another story I thought was cool, let's shout this one out. Not the Man-Bat story with Francine. This one is called Turn On, Tune In, and Freak Out. It's by Dafydd Wynn. I've never heard of him. But it does have Eduardo Barreto on art, and he is a longtime inker but also an artist on his own right. And it's this little one-shot tale of one survivor who found the TV station that still had broadcast power and decided to do a show every single day in Gotham with puppets and a model of the city, and highlight people in Gotham who were doing good deeds. And there's kind of this ongoing narration as you're cutting away from the show to the people watching it, between Batman and Oracle, just saying like, why are we letting this guy on the air? And Batman's saying, you know, people need to see that Gotham is more than just this wasteland, that there are still people here. They need to connect with real people on the inside in order not to forget about us. And that's why he's letting this guy continue to operate and even protecting him as part of the story. And then reminding the rest of the world that Batman is still out there in Gotham protecting people like this television guy. So that was a cool little story that was left out of the other volumes. And some of these little one-and-doners, I think they were definitely left out in the old trades. So this is the first time they've probably ever been collected here. I'm trying to remember if the Nightwing 3-parter had been collected with him breaking into Blackgate, going up against Lockout and KG Beast. I don't remember reading that before, so I want to say maybe that's the first time that's been collected here as part of the No Man's Land story. I mean, that's the case for a lot of these stories too. The Catwoman thing was definitely something I'd never read before. So there's a 3-parter in here by John Ostrander and Jim Balent, however you pronounce his name. There's 3 issues of Catwoman in here, and she's going on a mission outside of Gotham City to retrieve some discs, and that are supposedly going to help Batman rebuild Gotham. It's not clear what's on these discs, but unfortunately for Batman, she kind of hits a couple of hiccups. So I think that's more set up for what happens later, because I remember when I was reading No Man's Land the last time I read it, I don't know, probably 15 years ago or something like that, in those older trades, the savior of Gotham at the end of volume 5, I think, or maybe a volume 4, another bald-headed person in the DC universe, you might know who I'm talking about, just kind of shows up out of nowhere, and I feel like what's happening in this Catwoman issue is a setup for that. So I'm interested to see if more of the little issues that always got left out that are sprinkled in these trades link to that story more, so that when it finally comes out in the last volume, in volume 4, that it is fully fleshed and feels more tactile or real or understandable. Because when I've read it the first time, second time, third time, whatever, in the old trades, it was definitely like an out of nowhere type thing. So I'm interested to see where this goes. But man, I just love this era of Batman. It's just so cool. Everybody's in, I think I just love it because everybody's in different positions, you know. Batman is still fighting crime, but he's letting some crime get away. He's got caves all over the city. He's not operating out of the Bat Cave, so there's some exploration of that with these new Bat Caves. And then he's also doing things where he is, he's teaming up with people you never thought he would team up with. He's teaming up with Poison Ivy. He's got this ongoing deal with the Penguin, that's in this volume. And he's using those as leverage in order to maintain control. He's still fighting with Gordon in this volume. They're still having this disagreement where Gordon doesn't want to really talk to Batman or hear his name uttered because he's so mad that Batman disappeared for 3 months. And stuff like that. The stuff with Two-Face is really interesting. There's an escalation early on in the war, and this is the arc that makes Batman realize that he cannot do this alone, that he needs help. And this is also the end of, this is the introduction of Cassandra Cain, as you might notice in the title here, Mark of Cain. And, he makes an appearance. He's hired to kill Batman, and then we meet Cassandra. Interestingly, her first, I think this whole arc is drawn by Damian Scott, who went on to do a whole bunch of issues on her solo series after No Man's Land. So that's a whole lot of fun. It's written by Kelly Puckett, who I also believe wrote a bunch of issues on the Cassandra Cain Batgirl series too. So this is fun. Definitely a fun story, and pushing Batman to his limits. So really, really fun. Highly recommend you guys, if you can seek these out, definitely try and pick them up if that's how you want to read them. If you want to get the omnibus, do it. I think honestly, I was reading some of the comments on the last video, people saying like, oh, but these are way overpriced now, they're super hard to find, and that's because they were printed in 2015, 2016, so they're 7 years old now, and they haven't been reprinted since. So that No Man's Land omnibus that's coming out, I don't know if it's next month or the month after that, may be your best chance to read these stories. So if you have an interest in reading No Man's Land, I highly suggest you do. Read it on the DC Infinite app if you want to do it that way. Got no issues with that. I do that myself with Comixology. But if you want something physical, seek out that omnibus, pre-order it however you think you can get it. Or if you really like the trades, you might have to spend a little bit of money to find them. But I would definitely recommend hitting every local comic shop in your area and just picking them up, onesie, twosies, whatever you can find. Online retailers, Amazon, DCBS, Tales of Wonder, cheap graphic novels. I picked these up, I think, from DCBS and maybe cheap graphic novels as well 2 years ago, I believe. It was a while back. But yeah, so definitely don't overpay for them if you don't have to. But definitely, like, for me, my story is always the Cataclysm trade that has this spine, right? That matches everything else. Was looking to find it, and I bought it on eBay for $60, and it retails for $40. And I went to a local comic shop in my area like 2 weeks after I'd bought it, and there it was on the shelf for $40. So I could have saved myself $20 if I had checked all the local shops in my area that still had a good selection of older trade paperbacks and stuff in stock. So that's my recommendation if you're looking to pick up No Man's Land. If you're looking to get the trades, I would search every local comic shop in your area that's feasible, and only then start looking at online retailers, or paying over cover price if you really want them that way. But honestly, I think the omnibus, if you don't have it yet, may be your best bet. I'm sure they'll do a volume 2, because there's not any way that they can do a Road to No Man's Land omnibus that has come out that contains Cataclysm and the Road to No Man's Land trades, and then do No Man's Land that only contains, I think it's only going to have like up until the end of this book here, volume 2. So they probably will do a second one that has volume 3 and 4. And 4 is definitely thick. Like volume 3 is a little bit thinner than volume 2, but 4 is a beast compared to this thing. So yeah, check those out if that's the way you want to get it. That's how I can tell you how to find them, But anyway, thank you guys for watching this review. Let me know what you think of No Man's Land. Is it one of the all-time great Batman events? I certainly think it is, and we will talk about it more and more as I read through the other 2 volumes here. Again, I've already started volume 3, so look for that video coming soon here on the channel. Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I am your host, Brent Casina, and today we're going to be talking about Batman No Man's Land Volume 3. But before we get into the review, please let me ask you to do one thing. Please consider subscribing. Helps me out, helps the channel grow, lets you know when I drop new videos, all that good stuff. So, Batman No Man's Land Volume 3. Like the last 2 volumes, this one was chock full of stuff that I haven't read before, simply because they've never, before these trades in 2016 or whatever, in the upcoming 2-volume omnibus, there are many issues of the No Man's Land stuff that has never been collected before, especially not in the trades that I had from the early 2000s. That was a 5-volume set, and they were all pretty thin. These are pretty thick suckers, 18 to 21 issues a piece. So I was reading this, and I was like, I don't think any issue here in volume 3 I had ever read. And looking back on it, it's true. There are no issues in here that I had ever read before. Mainly because I think they're not integral to the overall plot of No Man's Land. Overall, this volume is fine, but it's not as a good read as volume 1 or 2, and this is kind of where the plot kind of suffers a little bit. Maybe the event's dragging on too long, or we have too many books that are taking part in the event. So you get stories in here that, while interesting, don't drive the overall story forward. I think the main thing in this volume that is crucial to read is there's maybe 1 or 2 stories with Bane in here, going up and setting up Two-Face for some stuff. It's written by Chuck Dixon, and Matt Broom is on art. And Matt Broom's art is good in some places, and then you get to some other faces, like, he draws a really interesting Bane and Batman and Robin, but then he starts drawing Two-Face, and you're going, well, that looks, pretty bad. I'm trying to find a bad, here's the Two-Face right here. It's pretty bad. But anyway, this is, maybe this two-part story was in the previous collections or whatever, but I'm not sure. Because I do remember Bane showing up, and then I remember him in like the middle of Volume 3 in the old trades, and then he showed up at the very end, but I don't remember anything he did. And man, that's where this comes in. So Bane is destroying the Hall of Records in Gotham City because the outside interest, whoever he's working for, has some ideas about that. There's only one issue of Azrael in here. There's no Nicholas Scratch, so that's a departure from the last 2 volumes. I don't know if I can't recall if we're done with Nicholas Scratch. Killer Croc is in the beginning and end of this book. That's pretty interesting. But there's really no like standout story that I was like really hot on, like saying you need to read this volume or you need to track this volume down to read anything in it. Really, I think the 2 issues with Bane are the ones that matter the most. After that, I think the best story was there's a 3-parter with Robin in here at the very beginning, and I thought that was worthwhile. It's written by Chuck Dixon, as most Robin things were at the time. The art's pretty good. It's got Robin going up against Ratcatcher in the sewers and Mr. Freeze, trying to find a storage hoard of canned goods that people have been trading and have been out on the streets before. So that was the most interesting thing here, because it's really a Robin story. He's all over the place looking for this hoard, and he comes across this kid that he went to high school with that was like a big D&D player, and is basically leading this group of other teenagers in the sewers because he's a big nerd like you and me, and he's imagined himself as a leader so many times that when the situation actually hit him, he became one, and I thought that was pretty cool. But overall, this is not something that's like really necessary. There's a couple issues here with Paul Galassi and this Asian female character. I want to call her Jinx. It's not Jinx. Lynx. I was close. That's this like eye patch pirate woman right here. I don't remember reading her before. She's in Chinatown in Gotham, and Batman and her team up to try and save some children that are being starved, abused, taken advantage of, that kind of thing. They're working pedal bikes in order to make electricity. Paul Galassi's art here, yeah, it's okay. Like, I've seen a little bit better. It might be the inker, Randy Eberlin. Paul Galassi's definitely pulling from like the Batman Returns batsuit, because his batsuit looks way different than anyone else's here. Or Batman 89. Like, definitely the cowl. If you look at this cowl he draws right here, it's very stern all the time. Like, it doesn't move at all. And it's definitely the Batman like Forever Returns cowl from back in the day in the 90s when this was being drawn. So I thought that was interesting. Maybe the main thing that you might want to pick this up or seek this out for is this maybe the first collected edition that has the first in-continuity appearance of Harley Quinn. So she had been introduced in the animated series in the 90s, and then she had like a mini-series. There was the adaptation of the Batman the Animated Series episode written by Paul Dini and drawn by Bruce Timm. That's a collected graphic novel now, but I think this is where she first appears in terms of like in canon continuity, interacting with the characters as they're going through things. And the Joker's like trying to, get some property, and she just shows up. Like, literally, this splash page is the first time you ever see her here in continuity. And it's like, who's that? I mean, I know her, you know her. It's hard not to know Harley Quinn at this point, but they're constantly telling you, oh, she used to be his psychiatrist. There are flashbacks to her as his psychiatrist, like they're giving her origin story here in this issue and the one following that. So it's definitely a little weird to read this and like, this is the first appearance of a major character, and they're acting as if she's been there the whole time, and not introducing her as somebody that Joker just met or just joined the Joker's team, because she's never really been in comics before in the main continuity until this point. So, yeah, that may be the most noteworthy thing. But the best story in here is that Robin 3-parter at the very beginning. So I don't really know if you need to seek this out necessarily. Like if you only find, if you're seeking out the trades and you only find No Man's Land Volume 1 and 2 and 4, and you don't have 3, I think you'll be fine. I think you'll be okay. There's not that much in here that's worth checking out. And certainly you can go and find the single issues for these, or look at them digitally or something like that on Comixology if you would just want to read the stories that I recommended that are the best. Unfortunately, let me put it this way, I'm sniffling a little bit, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, I think this is going to be a poor start to whatever ends up being the No Man's Land Omnibus Volume 2, because checking out the solicits for Volume 1, it ends right at the end of Volume 2, and Volume 1 and Volume 2 I gave rave reviews for on this channel. I said they were awesome, essential reads, one of the best Batman events ever. Volume 3, unfortunately, is a letdown, and if this is the beginning of the Volume 2 Omnibus that all these omnibus collectors are going to go out and buy next year, the year after that, whenever it comes out, I think they're going to be kind of let down because it's not a strong start in terms of this big thick book that they're going to purchase for like $125 or whatever. I don't know, I'm speculating in the future, but it's kind of a letdown, and especially as a collected edition itself, it is a letdown. Ran for $34.99. If you can find it for cover price, good job, good luck. Like I was saying in other videos before, I would search out every comic shop in your area before you resort to the online marketplace and overpaying, especially for this one. Like this one, really, really mediocre. It's not bad in any way. It's just there are better Batman stories, better No Man's Land stories in Volume 1 and Volume 2, and this didn't really add anything to the ongoing storyline or tell any stories that were better than the stories that have already been told. So that's why Batman No Man's Land Volume 3 gets a meh from me, and it's definitely the weakest volume we've read so far. So there you have it, Batman's No Man's Land Volume 3 review. If you like No Man's Land Volume 3, let me know why. What is your favorite story in this volume? Certainly I won't disagree. I might disagree with you, but that doesn't mean that you're right or wrong. That's fine. We can all have disagreements. But yeah, let me know what you think of No Man's Land, and specifically Volume 3 down in the comments below, and we'll chat about it there. Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I'm your host, Brent Casina, and today we're going to be talking about Batman No Man's Land Volume 4. Now, before we jump into the review, let me please ask you to do one thing. Please subscribe. Helps me out, helps the channel grow, lets you know when I drop new videos, all that good stuff. So, Batman No Man's Land Volume 4. Here we are, finally at the end, the conclusion of this long Gotham City earthquake cataclysm No Man's Land saga. I have reviews on the No Man's Land playlist for all of the books in this saga in the new trade dress, the newer ones, I guess. Since these haven't been reprinted, they're kind of rare to see. So you may have a tough time looking for these if you like these stories or whatever, but rest assured, if you are a digital reader, they are always there for you to read if you really just want to read them, or you can wait for the omnibus to come out. I know there is a Road to No Man's Land omnibus that's out that collects Cataclysm and the Road to No Man's Land Volume 1 and Volume 2. There's a No Man's Land omnibus Volume 1 that's doing Volume 1 and 2 of these trades, and then a second one that's going to do Volume 3 and Volume 4, I presume. So, I was not so hot on Volume 3 if you saw the last video in this series, and I've pretty much loved every book out of this. The only ones that I think were really not poor but lackluster were Road to No Man's Land Volume 2 and then the No Man's Land Volume 3, the one that precedes this. This one is a fantastic read. Volume 4 is fantastic. This is just pure escalation, and then by the time you get to the end of the book, everything's been set up so great with all the little things and stuff. The climax of the book with the Joker and Gotham and all that stuff is really well set up, and it's really clear why they were saving Joker to the end in terms of a showdown with Batman. Like, yeah, he was in a couple of stories here and there, but Batman was purposefully like keeping him at arm's length, and when they do confront each other, or whatever the Joker does at the end of this book, was really, really cool. I remember reading it when I read the first initial trades, like the one, there was 5-volume set. I know I always talk about this in every video, but I'm just letting you know my history with the book. But man, there was stuff in here in volume 4 that I had never read yet, that were never collected previously. So obviously I didn't read it because I wasn't picking up the single issues in 1999 this was coming out. It's kind of a fun little thing to read this 21 years later, and they're talking about to Batman and Nightwing and Barbara Gordon about who they're going to spend the new Millennium New Year's with. So that's pretty fun. Y2K and all that. Which I guess Gotham didn't have to worry about since there were no computers up and running other than Batgirl's computers. There's some great stuff in here. I mean, you got writers like John Ostrander, Greg Rucka, Chuck Dixon, Denny O'Neil doing a whole lot, Devin Grayson. You got art by Jim Balint, Dale Eaglesham. Who else is in here? Roger Robinson doing the Azrael stuff. You got Pablo Raimondi, Stephen Harris, Damian Scott, and Dale Eaglesham are doing like a whole lot of work in this book. It's amazing how many issues they both cranked out during this time period. I'm sure it must have been crazy for those two artists. And this Dale Eaglesham work, it's 20 years old. It certainly is very reminiscent of the stuff he was just doing on Shazam, or if you read his JSA stuff, but it's safe to say that his style hasn't really changed that much. I think if it did change, it got a little bit more illustrative. Here's Dale Eaglesham with his patented like square-jawed dudes and muscly dudes, and the line work maybe got loosened up a little bit when he did JSA, and now certainly I think he's doing more of this illustrative detail in his work. But he's just a phenomenal artist. To have him and then Damian Scott do, like, sometimes they do each an issue. Later in the back when they're doing the endgame issues, it seems like there's half and half. Like one guy does one half of the issue and then switches over to, if Eaglesham does the first half, Damian Scott does the second, and then you get to the next part, and again it's another first half by Eaglesham, second half by Damian Scott. Although they are two very different artists, by this time you've been reading Dale Eaglesham and Damian Scott in alternating volumes of the No Man's Land trades that you're pretty much used to, like, seeing their style of art. So it's not quite that jarring by the time you're in volume 4. If you're just picking up only volume 4 and you haven't read everything else, it might be a little jarring, like if this was a different event trade or something like that. But I'm like, if this is volume 4, you're probably more used to this style by then. So it's pretty phenomenal. There's some standout stories in here. I mean, there's a lot because a lot of these stories are relevant to the arc of No Man's Land, and they do tie together, and so they are important. So some of them I have read before in the old trades, but there's stuff like all the Azrael stuff in here I'd never read before. All the stuff with Catwoman, her issues, never read before. And then I can't remember if they're the Dale Eaglesham Zaz issues. There's like 2 issues in the front here. I don't know if those were in the old trades. I don't really remember those. So maybe they were, maybe they weren't, but they were a fun read regardless. I'm not calling out the particular issues and stuff because, as I've discussed in other videos in this series, like, I think the way that they're publishing this in here is what must have been the publishing order, because you have, the stories jump from issue to issue by the same writer and artist. So Batman 572 is the second story in here. This is the first story with Damian Scott and Greg Rucka. This is the 2-parter with Two-Face and Renee Montoya, putting basically Jim Gordon on trial for Two-Face kidnapping Renee Montoya. Two-Face puts Jim Gordon on trial and blames him for that. But anyway, this starts in an issue of Batman and then continues into an issue of Detective Comics with the same writer and the same artist. So when I'm just saying there's issues in here, 3 or 4 arc, I'm not calling out the particular like comic book number or anything, because it's really, they don't tell you what it is as you're reading it. It's just up here in the table of contents. And then even in the back, they do have the covers and stuff, but unless you're like flipping through, like the covers are in the back, so you're not really recognizing that you're reading a new issue of a book until you get to like the title page or something, or there's the to be continued blurb that's in the bottom right hand corner of most end pages. But anyway, I gotta say the 2 standout stories in here are there's one issue here with Batman and Jim Gordon, and it's written by Greg Rucka, drawn by Rick Burchett. It's phenomenal. It is the climactic moment of these 2 men who have kind of been at odds, or, not really at odds, but Gordon's been angry with Batman since the very beginning of the No Man's Land trades, because Batman disappeared for 3 whole months. And their whole conversation in here, in one issue, written by Greg Rucka, is phenomenal. It gets down to the core of who Batman thinks Gordon is and who Gordon thinks Batman is, and why there's resentment there. Even before No Man's Land, there's a line here about Gordon who says, you think I'm an idiot? You had a parade of pretenders come in here and you never bothered to talk to me about them. And there he's referring to, Batman getting his back broken by Bane, then Jean-Paul Valley showing up and doing the whole Batman bit. Then Batman comes back, takes Jean-Paul Valley down, and then immediately hands it over to Dick Grayson, and Gordon's still going, this is not Batman. And you got to remember, that stuff happened in 1994, 93, 94, and this is 1999, so this is only 5 years previous that you had the Nightfall Saga when this was being published. So that's a pretty cool callback. When you're reading it, because you think it's much earlier, but in publishing history, it wasn't that long ago. It's like you talking about the New 52 reboot or something in Rebirth comics, or even if you're reading comics now, if you reference Rebirth, that was almost 5 years ago. So it's a pretty cool callback, even though it wasn't that long ago when they were writing this book. The second story that stands out, obviously, is the one called Endgame, which is the climax of the entire No Man's Land saga. Joker finally decides to show up and cause some real trouble. He goes up against Huntress and Petite, who is like the break-off guy of the Blue Boys, the GCPD, and Petite's kind of going power hungry, and he's, sending guys out to fight the Joker, and the Joker's just shooting them all. Or, even worse, dressing him up as the Joker himself, and it's dark and it's snowing, and you see a guy with white face, green hair, and a purple jacket, and you're on the other end of a scope. You think it's a Joker. This guy's so crazy, he's taking every shot he sees of purple jacket and green hair, and he ends up killing his own soldiers and not even caring because he's so power hungry and kind of mad. And then you have this phenomenal action sequence where Huntress, this is drawn by Dale Eaglesham, is just beating the crap out of these guys all by herself, 12-1. And it's a phenomenal issue. I really liked Huntress throughout the arc, but it wasn't of all the No Man's Land trades, but it wasn't until this issue here, Endgame Part 2, and then also the first issue where Victor Zsasz is here, and Huntress always kind of shows up with Leslie, the Batman's doctor friend, and I really liked her portrayal here. She's kind of her whole arc in No Man's Land is cool because it starts off as you kind of see her as torn. She's mad at Batman, and then you realize in I think it's book 2 that she's been acting as Batgirl at the same time. So in volume 1 you're reading Batgirl and Huntress, and they're not really linking up to say that they're the same person. And then when Cassandra Cain takes over, and I think in volume 2 as well, she's all mad about Batman and stuff, and it's I made that costume what it is. It doesn't mean anything without my actions. And there's also another standout issue is this origin issue that's in the middle here. It's kind of showing what Bruce Wayne was up to right after the road to No Man's Land ends, this missing 3 months, and how Huntress decided to become this Batgirl because she was going out as Huntress and not having any effect. Nobody would listen to her. But you show up in a black outfit with big tall ears and a yellow bat on your chest, well, people start to pay attention and that myth becomes alive. Meanwhile, you have Bruce going down and hooking up all these bat caves, and then it seems immediately recognizes that this new Batgirl is Huntress because of the way she fights. And then kind of tests her, and lets her prove herself to have his name, at least for the time being. Why that was in the middle of book 4 and not at the beginning of book 1 or 2 or 3, I don't know why they chose to tell this story when they did. I guess because they wanted to have this new Batgirl be a mystery, right? You've got this moment of people asking Bruce, where the hell have you been for the last 3 months? And it's never really picked up until this last, this one-shot story that's in the back here. There's definitely, a couple moments in here that were a little weird, like the whole thing with Tim Drake being rescued. That issue happens after the Endgame, the end of No Man's Land. You've read the end of No Man's Land, and then you have this kind of flashback in this Robin issue of how Tim Drake got rescued. And it was really jarring because in the Endgame storyline, it takes place over Christmas Eve and New Year's Day and all this stuff. And there's a moment with Tim and his dad having Christmas dinner, and you're going, wait, I remember the end of Volume 3 ending on this kind of like oh shit panel as Tim realizes that his dad pulled all the stops and got all this media attention about this missing teenager, Tim Drake, who went into No Man's Land. And you're just going, did that ever get resolved? And then you flip through to the end and go, oh, that story's coming up. So that was kind of weird here. Why, I don't know why they put that in the very back after everything. Like, I feel like you could have put it before the Endgame storyline began, but I guess they had their reasons if they decided they were only putting it in publishing order instead of like a true reading order. But it's not that bad. It's just like the one loose end that really gets wrapped up after the Endgame, the final act or whatever. There's some other things in here that's kind of weird. Like, you see the same moment of Catwoman delivering these files to Bruce 3 different times. You see it in pages of Catwoman, you see it in pages of Azrael, and you see it in pages of, I think it's like Detective Comics or Batman Chronicles or something. But it's the same dialogue delivered 3 different ways, and it's like, I've read this 3 different times, I don't need to be reading it again. Even though it's a good story, like the first time you read it, you're like, wow, this is cool. And then the second time you're like, okay. And then by the third, you're like, all right, I'm skipping ahead a little bit here because I've really read the same thing again and again and again. So maybe they all came out in the same week and they assumed that not everybody's picking up all the No Man's Land books, and this was a really important moment for the end, I guess. That was kind of weird. The other thing too is I didn't realize there's a story with Azrael here called Evacuation, or it's not Evacuation, is it? No, it's a little bit later. I'm sorry. It's this one here. Flipping into it. Denny O'Neill's writing it. You got Roger Robinson on pencils, James Pasco on inks. So after Catwoman decides to deliver the disc, and you read that story for the 3rd time. You've read an issue of Azrael before working with Catwoman. You read some issues with Catwoman, and then you go back to Azrael, and this is called Presence of Mind. And you have Batman talking to Azrael and say, take Batgirl with you, stop the Joker, he's hunting babies, that kind of thing. And he fights Santa Claus, or a guy dressed up as Santa in this Lex Luthor camp. And, he saves Mercy and Batwoman from an explosion. It's a really sweet moment at the end. They're exchanging presents, and these two, like, emotionally crippled people, Batgirl and Jean Paul Valley, exchanging presents is kind of touching. But you don't realize that this is the same moment you read again later in the Endgame saga, the 4-part saga, until like 3 issues later, and they're referencing it, and you're like literally seeing the same image as well, and you're going, wait, is that the same moment I just read like pages ago? And yes it is. This one here, this one is drawn by Dale Eaglesham, not Roger Robinson. They both do it fairly well. Like, I can't say I prefer one to the other. The Azrael story is more about the connection between the two characters of Azrael and Batgirl. This one is purely like there's a setup in the beginning of Endgame Part 1 where Bruce gives him this mission again, and then by that time you're reading it, you're going, oh yeah, okay, I remember that a couple issues back. And this is just following up on that they went to go protect Luthor's camp to search for these babies that Joker has kidnapped. But the ending of Endgame, man, just this last bit is just so tragic and just kind of like really gut-wrenching. That is the true ending of No Man's Land, this big like oh no moment of tragedy that is just like the capstone of all tragedies. So you've had the tragedy of Cataclysm and a lot of people dying in there with buildings falling on them. You've had the cataclysm of the failure of the system of the United States and society to keep Gotham City alive during Road to No Man's Land. And then as you're reading No Man's Land, you're seeing the failures of human beings as people. And then to have this personal tragedy for Jim Gordon to happen at the very end is just gut-wrenching. And I thought it was really interesting the way they kind of resolved it with, Gordon and the Joker and their showdown, and just kind of like, him at his wit's end going like, this guy, he just did this to me. He shot Barbara. All the other people he's murdered, we're still in a state of no man's land. Like, theoretically, Gordon could have shot the Joker and probably faced no charges for it because they're still in a lawless state by then. But it's interesting. Obviously, the Joker shows up again, so I don't have to spoil that for you. But yeah, it was cool. And then the whole ending to like No Man's Land proper, in terms of like how Gotham gets out of this predicament, is in this epilogue issue. That's the very last issue in the book, and it just kind of reveals, what the whole end game was. What you kind of know what Lex Luthor wants, because he's trying to rebuild Gotham, and he's trying to gain all this real estate. And then Batman, like, they refer to his plan all throughout this whole volume. They don't spell it out until the very, very end what Batman's plan was. And I can't say it was like, worked out perfectly. It's pretty like standard for Batman, but it's pretty cool how he sets it up with Lucius Fox and the stuff he was doing as Bruce Wayne, or what people thought Bruce Wayne was doing during this whole time, and how he like clues different people onto different trails in order to stop Luthor from basically like a land grab, a la the Superman movies that he was in, right? But I gotta say, I really, really enjoyed this volume of No Man's Land in particular. And I gotta say, if, how many volumes are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If there's only 2 volumes out of the 7 that aren't great reads, Road to No Man's Land Volume 2 and No Man's Land Volume 3, which aren't great, and everything else is really, really good, that's a really good run of comics. That's like probably a year and a half of comic books, or 2 years in the Batman line, that they were phenomenal reads. Like, I can't imagine picking this up weekly and just like wanting to pick up all the Bat books, because they were so good at the time. And this shows how good all these writers were. Chuck Dixon, Brubaker, Brubaker wasn't on yet. It was Greg Rucka on here. Devin Grayson, Denny O'Neil, all these guys. Jim Balint, Larry Hama writes some stuff in a couple of the other volumes. Who's writing Catwoman? John Ostrander, all doing great stuff. So No Man's Land, I gotta say, it's probably, I'm gonna reread all the Bat events I got. I mean, Nightfall is good, my personal favorite, because of the Azrael stuff, As-Bats. But in terms of like, don't want to put the book down, this beats Nightfall, seriously. So if you haven't read No Man's Land, or haven't read it in a while, go pick it back up and read it all the way through. It's a phenomenal read. I highly recommend it for any Batman fan out there. And I mean, it's no small feat. You're going to have to buy 3 omnibuses at some point to read all this if they never reprint these trades. Or, you're going to spend a lot of money trying to find these trades, physical copies, because some of them are available, some of them are not, and they're going to ask you to pay over retail price because they're out of print, because somehow that makes it more valuable. Don't get me started. But yeah, I think it's a phenomenal book. So No Man's Land, 2 thumbs way up for volume 4 here. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know down below what you think of No Man's Land. Is it the best Bat event to come out of Batman since ever, like I'm saying it is? Or do you have a different favorite? So let me know down below what you think. Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. We got another overview for you today. The Batman Cataclysm trade, which is out of print. So I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm just really excited that I got it. This was printed, I think, back in 2016. This is the new printings. Yeah, 2015. These are the new printings. These all have the red striped spines with the older logo on here. And if you're looking at the Road to No Man's Land trades, that's when these came out shortly after. These look like that on your shelf. And then there's the 4-volume No Man's Land set, which looks like that as well. So all the spines look nice together, and there you have it. So interestingly, the No Man's Land trades, I think, are relatively easy to find. You can still find them for retail price on Amazon and probably places like eBay, or maybe even your local comic shop. The Road to No Man's Land, you can also find, I think, are pretty much readily available. If you're looking to get them, I picked them up off, I think, Amazon for, relatively easy money. I think I got all the No Man's Land trades, the new editions, from In Stock Trades, and I did a video on that. So you can check that out as well if you want to see what's in those. So these all run, anywhere between $30 and $35. This one's $30, so we'll get to that. So what is Cataclysm? Well, Cataclysm is the earthquake that basically ruins Gotham City in such a manner that it needs to become a no man's land a few months later in the Batman books. So no man's land, I think, happened in 99, 2000, or 2000, 2001. So we're talking turn of the millennium age DC Comics here. And this happened, I want to say it was 99. Does it have a... Yeah, 1998. Okay, so even a little bit earlier than I was thinking. So this Cataclysm collection has been a bear to find. When I had decided that I wanted to update all of my No Man's Land collections to the new editions because they contained more issues, and I wanted to read the Road to No Man's Land because that was coming out as well, I knew I wanted to get Cataclysm because it also contained a little bit more, but mainly for the newer paper, and because the spines would match and look better on my shelf, the typical collector mentality. This is the old trade from, I think, when it first came out. That's what that spine looks like. And it's fairly complete. This one was published in 1999, so this is right after it happened. It's got the old, matte, thicker newsprint type stuff, but the colors just look better on this newer glossy paper than the old. Let me find Nightwing here. Yeah. So, I don't know if you can tell in the camera, but they do look a little bit better on this newer, glossier, thicker paper that's in these newer printings. So, anyway, this Cataclysm trade is incredibly hard to find. I actually picked this up off eBay for, believe it or not, $60. Retails for $30. So yes, I paid double the price of what I probably should have for this trade that for some reason is no longer being printed, not readily available. I don't know if they underprinted them or whatever, but this thing is hard to find. And because of that, you can find, like if you just Googled Batman Cataclysm on Amazon or something like that, you'd see people trying to sell this for $100, $145 just for this trade paperback. And one day I was like, hey, I wonder if there's any copies on eBay that people might be trying to get rid of. And sure enough, there was. And I weighed it, and I went, $60. And I went, yeah, let's do it. So I'm pretty happy about it, too. Because now I can read the entire thing, front to back, in the most complete kind of thing there is. Now, I know there is a Road to No Man's Land omnibus coming out, and that Road to No Man's Land omnibus will contain basically these 3 volumes. I think the way they're printed here, probably Cataclysm, Road to No Man's Land Volume 1, and Volume 2 here. So if you're looking at the thickness of that book, probably be about that, couple inches, probably a good 2 inches, maybe a little bit thicker if they got thicker paper, but it's going to be oversized, so there's that. The downside to that is I don't think, unless they update the scans on this, on some of these issues, because some of these issues scans look terrible, I don't know that you're going to be very happy with it. But anyway, let's get into the book. So all these are pretty much collected the same. They're all designed the same, but the way that they put them together is a little bit different. And I'll show you what I mean. Like Cataclysm here, when you're flipping through, they all the No Man's Land, Road to No Man's Land stuff has a table of contents, which is nice. It tells you what issue it is, from what series, the name of the storyline, who wrote it, all the guys that worked on it, except for the editors and stuff like that. But they can't decide whether they want to put the covers in front or behind, and even the Cataclysm's not consistent. So right here you have the Cataclysm Prelude, Batman Detective Comics 719. Now, a portion of this story is collected in this old version of the trade paperback, just these last couple of pages here, drawn by Bill Willingham. It's like 4 pages, I think, right when the earthquake starts to rumble, and it ends right here on the Batcave. That's the, 1, 2, 3, 4 pages? Yeah. And then it goes to part 1 of Cataclysm, which is the next issue in this one. This actually collects the entire issue, and it's got, I think it's Jim Apparel and art. Yeah. So there we go. Here's the end of the issue and the beginning of that. But they have a cover here. What's weird though is that this is Cataclysm Part 1, this one, but it doesn't tell you what book it is because they took the cover title treatment off. When you flip it over, it doesn't have anything on the other side to tell you what book it was or anything like that. But it does have the page, so you can go Cataclysm, Castles Built on Sand. Okay, what is this? Go back to the table of contents and go, oh, this is Shadow of the Bat 73. So, okay, but why they leave this on here and then leave it, you know, take it off with the painted cover? I don't know. I don't know why. Like right there, why doesn't this have Cataclysm like the way it was presented? Now, it's a beautiful cover. It deserves to have a full page treatment for sure. I'm not arguing that part, but I'm just would like some little consistency. So let's go to this Nightwing issue, which I think is part 2. So they leave it off here. And this is when they were doing like some of these covers, you'll see like a little red aftershock thing or whatever. But Scott McDaniel actually worked that into his cover because he knew it was going to be covered up. So that's smart, right? So let's go to the next issue, which right here, Mark Buckingham. Nothing on here, right? Strange. Keep going. Here's Klaus Janson. Where's the end of Mark Buckingham? Oh, there's Klaus Janson. Mark Buckingham did the cover. Okay. So you get past Klaus Janson to show. Here's Azrael's book. So these Azrael issues, for whatever reason, they look a little bit worse than some of the other ones. And this Azrael issue is not contained in the regular Cataclysm trade whatsoever. So here you go. Where was the cover? Right here. So this is Azrael number 40. He'd been doing stuff with Bane up until that point. And so you kind of have to read into it before reading this. But the earthquake allows Bane to escape, which I think comes in later down the line during No Man's Land. And Azrael and Jean Paul Valley have a history if you've read Nightfall Part 2. Again, no cover treatment. But later on in the book, it's trying to prove me wrong here. Batman Huntress. So you get the little Cataclysm thing on the left here. Most of them had this little red treatment. Here you go. Batman, Cataclysm. On the left-hand side, number 554. So why do they have the regular full cover, even with the little white box? I have no idea. So it's inconsistent, depending on what it is. Maybe is it issue of Batman, but this first one was it Shadow of the Bat? Yeah, Detective Comics. So I don't even understand. And the weird part is the some of the Cataclysm issues would say above the writer, 9, 10. Here's the Arkham Asylum one shot here. Doesn't have anything on the front. So some of these are like one shots in between all the different stories, the actual like 10 or 12 parts. But you wouldn't know that based on the stuff that's on the cover. So like this one says Batman Cataclysm Part 12 down here. So, and I think this might be the actual last issue in the regular trade. Little Orphan Andy. Or no, this Robin issue is the last one. And it ends back here. Some ads. There you go. So it does end on the same page, on the same note. So what is in here in the new version of the trade that's not in the old version? So what are we adding? Well, we are adding all of Detective Comics 719, not just 3 pages. So you're getting the complete issue there. Whether that's important to the story or not, who knows? You are getting Robin 52, which if I flip through here, it'll take me a while to find it. But I did verify this is just, again, the last couple pages of Robin 52. Even though the cover is included and the cover has a Cataclysm thing on here. I think it's fairly early on in the issue, in this trade. Just a couple pages where Robin's flying in to Gotham City. And it doesn't really say, you don't get the full story. Because I looked up on Comixology, thank you Comixology for having digital stuff. You can look and actually preview, here we go. So this has got the full cover thing, Cataclysm, but it's just a couple pages. He's on a plane, coming back, Gotham's on fire, and then boom, we have this another cover here. So they're not including that full issue, but looking at the description of it on Comixology, if you were to look at the digital version of that particular Robin 52, it's like the finale to a storyline or something that was going on at that time. So I get, it makes sense why they didn't include the entire issue here, but it's just a little weird. So what is in this new version that's not in the old one? Well, I think Blackgate Isle of Men, that is in here. Huntress Spoiler one-shot is in both of them. So you're getting all of Detective Comics 719, the little bit of Robin that we just highlighted here. And you're also getting it's in the back here, is that one I showed you, the Arkham Asylum Tales of Madness #1. That's also in here. So it's a little bit more, the Catwoman issues. You get one extra issue of Catwoman, you get number 57. 56 is in the original. Shadow of the Bat 73 and 74 are also here. Nightwing 19 and 20 also here. So you're getting maybe 3 or 4 extra issues. I think that Tales of Madness one shot's a little bit thicker. But if you're upgrading your collection, it's not a bad option. I think the only downside is, like I said before, some of these scans, particularly these old Azrael issues that nobody's paid attention to in 20 years, don't look the best compared to the rest of the artwork. I mean, some of the Jim Aparo stuff, but even this scan doesn't look that great. It looks a little weird compared to a couple pages prior with this Jim Aparo artwork. So it's a little weird on why it looks bad or looks the way it does. So that's a bummer. But if you're like me and a completist, I guess you can go try and find it. I don't know. Haven't seen anything about them trying to reprint this at all, other than it being included in the upcoming omnibus, the Road to No Man's omnibus. So, Road to No Man's Land. What happens in this book? Well, this is volume 2, so let's go to volume 1. So this book takes place right after Cataclysm. In fact, I looked at the issue numbers, and pretty much as soon as Cataclysm ends here with Detective Comics ends at 721, this one starts with 722, skips 723, it was a crossover with Green Arrow, and then goes to 724, 726, all the way in volume 2 to, we're talking Detective Comics still, 729. So if you were to put this on your shelf with the Cataclysm, you would put it right after, I'm probably going to put it after my Gotham Night Out, because that ends with Detective 719, with Chuck Dixon writing and Graham Nolan penciling. And the same thing with Batman. This has 555 through over here, 562, and Cataclysm ends with Batman 554. So you're basically getting everything after Cataclysm leading up to No Man's Land Volume 1, which is why I have this one over here, and this one doesn't have the Batman stuff on the back, so we'll peek this open. So this has Batman 563, and this Road to No Man's Land ends at 562. So there you have it. And then No Man's Land is 4 volumes, we did a video on this. This No Man's Land volume collection pretty much has everything that has a No Man's Land moniker on it. So I haven't actually read these Road to No Man's Land volumes, but I do like that they all match. If you can line them all up, they all match, which is pretty neat. And they can have the entire story from the earthquake all the way through to No Man's Land, which is pretty neat. And they're, like I highlighted in my No Man's Land overview video as well, they're including everything, whereas the older collections didn't have the Azrael issues or maybe some of the Catwoman issues. Everything that had a No Man's Land banner is collected in these volumes. So this has issues of Azrael, so does volume 2 through 4. The Road to No Man's Land has issues of Azrael in here. And this one, the set 47 to 50 in part 2. This is Nicholas Scratch's gang, and he was a player with Azrael. This has got the Secret Files and Origins, which I remember. I have this issue still, I think, somewhere in the house, even though I got rid of most of my single issues. Love these little Secret Files and Origins. There's Azrael. So this is the story of how Gotham City became deemed a no man's land where nobody could go in or out, because I guess after the earthquake there was maybe some political machinations that stopped things from progressing and repairing. More Azrael. Lots of Azrael in this one. You know, maybe there's an overall scheme. I know at the end No Man's Land has some Lex Luthor stuff in there and Bane, and they have a big scheme, so maybe this sets that up. But I'm interested to read it all. I've reread No Man's Land multiple times in the old volumes. Still have not gotten around to reading the new ones. But since I'm reading all my Nightfall stuff now, I'm pretty much going to go all the way through to the end of No Man's Land, and then do the Brubaker and Rucka stuff through War Games, probably. You know, hopefully before Christmas, we'll see. And then we'll have videos on all of those here on the channel as well. Just bear with me. It's a lot to read, along with everything else I'm doing for work and home and family and all that stuff. So, there you have it. Batman Cataclysm, the newer edition that no one can find. So, you can find it on Comixology. Like, you can just buy it outright if you want to read it that way. And then wait until you can get a new edition. There's the old one. Here's a new one, a little bit more complete. And if you wanted a preview of what's in the omnibus that's coming out, you know, I gave a little bit of it to you. You don't have to worry. I think it collects everything. So there you go. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. We'll see you guys next time in the funny pages. Don't forget to like, comment down there, and subscribe. Helps the channel grow when you interact and stuff like that. And I will be down there in the comments answering any questions. So let me know if you have any. Thanks for watching. We will see you guys next time in the funny pages.